Name is Sue Watson. I'm chair of West Ham United Supporters Trust.
Thank you very much for your time today, Sue, to talk about the sad passing of co-chairman David Gold at the age of 86. The first question I'll ask you then is, straight off the bat, I know this is rather fresh news for you and everyone in the West Ham community. What does Mr. Gold's passing mean to you?
Well, David Gold was a lifelong West Ham fan. He followed the Hammers. He actually lived opposite the old bowling ground, and he played for the 13 to 16-year-old team as a young lad. So he had a lifelong link and love of the club. Obviously, it is sad news. It is sad news. And our condolences, our genuine condolences, go to his two daughters, Jacqueline, Vanessa, and his fiancée Leslie, and everyone that knew him and worked with him, his close family, his friends. It is a difficult time. And as you say, the club has its, the pressures are on the club at the moment. And obviously this has come, no passing is good.
No, of course, I can imagine. So for people that aren't maybe West Ham fans, or people that don't necessarily follow football as closely as you or I, for example, can you just briefly explain what David Gold has done for West Ham United?
Okay, well, if I talk about some of the things so we've been contacted by some supporters just to say, I remember when. So let me just give you some of the I remember when from a range of supporters. So he went to most of the away games, if not all. He made time to talk to the West Ham supporters. He worked to ensure that football was affordable for children so that families could go and they could afford season tickets. So, I mean, that was something. Open house days, because, again, that was, something he liked to do. He made time to talk to people who went, and he always talked so warmly and with a great sense of pride of his link and love of West Ham. There was a particular fan who'd there's been some sort of mix up with his hospitality package. So David Gold paid for a hospitality package and joined them at the subsequent season. So these are all just little things that he has done. They might not be a lot in the grand scheme of things, but they meant a lot to those West Ham fans. He always had time to talk to a West Ham fan about West Ham. He often went to the Rush Green training facilities and spoke to the youngsters that were coming through. He had an interest in the people who work behind the scenes. So not just the big names, not just the manager, not even just the first team, but just people who work for West Ham. And to some extent, that is the mark of a person that genuinely cares about the people that work for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I know this is very, shocking news, and news that probably fans, and yourself included, probably will need to take a while to digest. But just sort of your initial thoughts, if you don't mind, Sue, of what do you think Mr. Gold's passing will mean going forward for West Ham, both on a management level, but also from West Ham fans almost?
Well, management level, I mean, it's in the public domain that his two daughters have said they're not necessarily that interested in carrying on an involvement with West Ham. Obviously, Mr. Gold had a percentage of shares. Our understanding is David Sullivan and Daniel Kretinsky have first option should they choose to purchase any of those shares. So obviously that would be a change in the management and the dynamics. Going forward, well, what I would like to see is I'd like to see a really good performance tonight. We're away to Leeds. Hopefully the team put in a good performance in recognition and acknowledgement of, but when the first or the next game at the London Stadium, I think it would be respectful to mark his passing and acknowledge everything he brought to the club and to his family. To give the fans a chance to pay their respects as a large body. I mean, West Ham fans are a very diverse group, as you know. And again, as you know, there has been some differing opinions on for example, the move from the Bowling to the London Stadium. But we do look after our own. And as you know, Ben, West Ham fans are very, very much a family community. And it would be nice if that community could come together just to say, goodbye, Mr. Chairman, you know, good luck. And shake hands with Bobby when you're up there.
Yeah, of course. And like you say, Sue, I'm a West Ham fan. So I think this, not only on a professional level, but also personal level, I think resonates as it will with you on those multiple different levels. And you discussed there about the game at Leeds United today. And, sort of the potential pressures that the team are under anyway, five league defeats in the last 5 games, and David Moyes under an increasing amount of pressure. Do you think sort of taking the emotion out of obviously the incredibly sad news, do you think the passing of David Gold adds even more pressure on the likes of David Moyes, with potential changes at the top of the food chain as well, potentially? Will that stall potential changes slightly lower down? Has this given David Moyes more time to turn results around? As the board have already said, he has their backing.
Yeah, the only problem I would have with that is the Premier League's a very unforgiving league. Well, all leagues are to some extent, but the Premier League in particular. I'm not sure we have the luxury of time, to be honest, Ben. I think careful consideration needs to be made as to what the next step is, but something needs to change in the team, the first team, the structure, the management. Something needs to shift because it isn't working. And it isn't just that we've come up against some spectacular teams and they've played absolutely brilliantly. And, it's been like, well, and it's not as if our performances have actually been really good and we've just not had the rub of the green on the day, or VAR's gone against us, or whatever it is. It's not that. If it was that, then we might be having a different conversation. But the issue that a lot of supporters have is around the West Ham performances themselves. And, I think there are questions there that need answering. And I don't think we have the luxury of time, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very, I think that's a very, valid point that, unfortunately the two events may not coincide with one another. And like you said, it is a results game as opposed to anything else. So the last question I'll ask you, Sue, is again about Mr. Gold's death. Of how will David Gold be remembered, not only at the London Stadium and in the hearts of West Ham fans, but in the wider football community, do you think?
I think to a large extent, he had football supporters at the heart of what he did, because as you know, West Ham wasn't his only club he was involved with in his managerial history or his chairship history. But he was somebody that spoke on behalf of supporters and tried to do all those little things, paying for this, saying hello, stopping his car and saying, what do you think of the game? All these sorts of very little things that actually mean something. And that is part of being the West Ham family. That says, I belong. And West Ham is saying goodbye to one of its own today.